Hello, my name is Hossein Mahdavian. In this tutorial, I want to teach you this logo animation. It takes a little time to make and has many steps, but with a little practice, you can make this logo animation even better than me. So stay with me until the end of the video. To start, we create a new project. First of all, we import the training files into the program. I use the drag and drop method to import these files and drop them in the project section of the program. Create a new composition. Name it, for example, logo animation. Select full HD size and frame rate of 30 frames per second and click OK. Drag and drop the texture file in the layer section. Press S and make it a little smaller. In the effects and presets section, search for the curves effect. And drop it on the layer. In the effects control panel, I move this handle down. And adjust its contrast like this. Select the blue channel and adjust its handle as shown in the video. Select the red channel and adjust it like this. The purpose of doing this is to have a textured blue background. I put this layer inside the pre-composition. Click on the layer and press Ctrl-Shift-C to open the pre-composition window. I select the Move All Attribute option and choose a name for this pre-composition. For example, type BG. Now we have to write our text. I select the text tool, click on the screen and write the desired text. You can also use your own logo, but I use the text here. You can adjust its font from the right side. Right-click on the text and select the Center Anchor Point option from the Transform section so that the anchor point is placed in the middle of the text. Then I select the Center in View option so that the text is placed exactly in the middle of the screen. I also put the text layer inside the pre-composition and choose a name for it. For example, logo. Now we have to trace this logo. For this, I select the Auto Trace option from the Layer menu. Set the settings of this window as below. And finally, click on OK. With this, a new layer is created, which is actually the traced logo. Change the name of this layer to Stroke. And I search for the stroke effect from the effects and presets section and place it on this layer. In the paint style section, I select the untransparent option. I also hide this logo layer. You can see that the logo appears with a narrow stroke. To make the whole logo appear, I check the All Mask option. If I move the end, we can animate this logo. Set it to 0 and enable the stopwatch to create a keyframe. Set CTI to second 3. In this section, you can see the seconds. Or zoom in on the timeline and select second 3, and then I'll set the end value to 100. And this is how the logo is animated. Now I want to create a diagonal lines inside this logo. I take a duplicate from the stroke layer. Change its name to Fill. Remove its stroke effect. and I use an effect called Scribble on this layer. You can see that a series of diagonal lines have been created on the logo. In order for these lines to be placed on all the letters from this section, I select the All Mask Using Modes option. If I move the CTI, you will see that the lines will also move. In order to fix them, I choose the Static option from the Wiggle Type section. Now you can see that the lines are no longer moving. Again, we can animate these lines from the end part. I set the end to 0. Bring the CTI to the first frame and activate its stopwatch to create a keyframe. Come to the second tree and set it to 100. You can see that their animation happens simultaneously. To make it happen with a delay, I will move this layer a bit. Now you can see that after a stroke appears, these diagonal lines also appear. We can also move the stroke layer a little to make it look more beautiful. Now to make the logo animation look more attractive, I want to create a series of guidelines around the letters. For this, I create a solid layer from the layer menu. We can choose its name as line 1 for example. With the original composition size and click on OK. Hide this layer. Select the pen tool and click here. Hold Shift and draw a line like this. I select the selection tool and move this line and place it on the letter. You must do this for all letters. Click, hold Shift and draw a line like this. Then select the selection tool and move the line and place it in its right place. If you don't select the selection tool, the lines will be connected to each other, which we don't want to happen, and the lines should be independent. Click, hold Shift and click again, and adjust the line using the selection tool. I draw these lines diagonally above and below the letters and place them in the right place with the selection tool. I do this for all letters. After you draw these lines, you can duplicate this layer and move the mask, or you can create another solid layer and redraw the lines. I choose the name line 2. I also hide this layer. Select the pen tool and draw these lines in reverse. And in this way, I draw these lines from this side. Don't forget to hold the Shift key while drawing the lines, so that the lines are smooth and regular. I do this for all letters. You should do this for all the letters of any logo with any text you have. It takes a little time, but it's worth it. After these lines are also finished, I make another solid layer. I will name it line 3. Also hide this layer. Select the pen tool and do the same for the vertical lines. And finally, it comes to the horizontal lines. Create a solid layer. I will name it line 4. Hide this layer. Select the pen tool and do this process for the horizontal lines as well. After we draw these lines, we need to give it a stroke. We can use the stroke effect. Drag and drop it on one of these layers. Set this part to untransparent and also check the All Mask option. Unhide this layer. You can see these lines with strokes. We can animate them from the end part. I set it to 0. Activate the stopwatch. Move the CTI to second 4 for example. and then set the value to 100. Now you can see that these lines appear like this. Again, we can copy this effect and use it for the rest of the layers, and hit Ctrl V. If I unhide all the layers, you can see the animation of the lines. Of course, we should have done this in the first frame, but don't worry, we can move the keyframes. Press U to see the keyframes. Zoom out the timeline. Select the keyframes and move to the first frame. Now if you look carefully, all the lines appear together in order, which we don't want to appear in order. We need to make these lines appear randomly. Press U to hide the keyframes. Open the mask part of this layer and move these mask layers as desired so that the lines appear randomly. Solo this layer and move the masks. Now if you look carefully, the lines appear randomly, not in order. We must do this for all layers. Solo this layer and move the mask layers. I repeat this for all layers. Now if you look carefully at the animation, you will see that the lines appear randomly. To make the work more interesting, we should use an effect called fractal noise. But before that, we have to put these layers in a pre-composition. We select all these layers and place them in a pre-composition with Ctrl-Shift-C. I call it lines. Search fractal noise and place it on this layer. I choose 350 in the contrast section. I set the brightness to -6, and in the transform section, set the scale to 6. Now if you pay attention to these lines, we created a noise mode. I also set the mode of this layer on the screen. We can copy this fractal noise effect and paste it on other layers like a stroke. I also put the mode of this layer on the screen. We can increase its scale in the transform section. Adjusting the scale is a matter of taste, and you can choose any number you like. I copy this effect again and paste it on the fill layer, and adjust the scale as desired. Also put the fill layer mode on the screen. And in this way, we were able to create this beautifully animated logo. Now to make the logo animation more attractive, we have to animate the camera as well. But before that, open the project panel and import this video in the layer section. This video is an animated noisy line. Set the mode of this layer to screen. Hit S and make it small like this. Exactly the size of the lines we created. Like this. Right click on this layer and select freeze on last frame from the time section. With this, when the video is finished, it will freeze on the last frame. Now we have to place this line somewhere in the logo. Press the plus button on the numpad and rotate this line. and I put this line here, for example. If you look carefully, this line will appear like all other lines. We need to hide this line somewhere between these lines. Another line is also created here. We can rotate this line and place it exactly on that line. Now we have to animate the camera. We use a null object to animate a 2D camera. From the layer menu and the new section, I create a null object. Move this null object and place it here, because I want it to be animated from here. I select all these layers and parent them to the null object like this. Now we have to animate this null object so that the camera will be animated. But before animating the camera, I move these layers forward a little. Select all these layers and move them forward a little in this way. First, I want this line to appear, then the rest of the logo will appear. Select the null layer. Move the CTI to where the logo animation ends. You can also expand this line so that it doesn't disappear suddenly. For example, till here. Select the null layer and create a scale, rotation and position keyframes by pressing Alt-Shift-S, Alt-Shift-R and Alt-Shift-P. Move CTI here, for example. And here I rotate it a little and make this line straight. You can see that the background also rotates with it. I increase the scale so that the black part of the background disappears. I rotate it a little. And I move it a little to the left. Select these keyframes and move them to the first frame by holding Shift. And in this way, we were able to animate the camera beautifully. Select all these keyframes and make them easy ease by pressing F9. Now I want the logo to be completely white after this logo appears. We can use this logo layer. Place this layer on top of all layers. Unhide it and use an effect called Linear Wipe. Search for Wipe. Drag and drop this effect on the logo layer. Move the CTI a little. First of all, I set its angle to -90 because I want the logo to appear from left to right. And I set the transition completion to 100. Move the CTI, and where you want the white logo to appear, click on the transition completion stopwatch to create a keyframe. Press U to see the keyframes. Move forward a few frames and set this number to 0. If you look carefully, this logo turns white from the left side and covers the entire diagonal lines. I also select these two keyframes and make them easy ease with F9. Now the only thing left is to make the guideline disappear after the logo turns white. To do this, I select these layers by holding Shift. Move the CTI where we want them to start disappearing. Press T to activate opacity. Click on the stopwatch. Move the CTI forward a few frames and set this to 0. And we were able to make this logo animation so beautifully. Play the animation from the beginning to see how it looks. On second 8, press N button to limit the work area. To make the work more attractive, I use another video layer called a spark. I will add this video to the layer section, set the mode of this layer to screen. We can move this layer and put it here, for example. And we were able to create this logo animation so beautifully. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial. You can create attractive logo animations with the techniques you learned in this video. I'll see you in another tutorial. Thanks for watching.